You ever have one of those moments where the world just stops? I was driving home from work, Friday night, tired, rain tapping on the windshield like it had something to say. My brain was fried. I'd had back-to-back meetings all day, the kind where you smile through your teeth while wondering if the person talking even hears themselves. So I did what I always do to decompress. Turned on my favorite podcast. Lighthearted stuff. Relationships, call-ins, stories from people messing up their lives in creative ways. Made me feel better about my own, honestly. Even had a segment called, Tell Me Your Truth, where folks shared secrets they couldn't say out loud anywhere else. That's when it happened. The host picked up a call and said, You're live on Tell Me Your Truth. What's on your mind? And this woman, this caller, she starts talking. Soft voice. Measured. A little nervous at first. And I swear to God, my stomach dropped. Because it sounded just like my wife. I mean, just like her. Same cadence. Same little pause before choosing words carefully. Same slight rasp in the throat, like she's been sipping tea all day. I laughed at first, awkward, out loud, in the car, thinking no way. Just a coincidence. Plenty of women sound alike. But then she said her name. Kate. Not Kathy. Not my wife's actual name. But the fake kind of name you'd use if you were my wife, and didn't want anyone knowing it was you. I turned down the AC. Rain still fell. My hands gripped the wheel tighter. She kept talking. I've been married 8 years, she said, and I feel like I'm suffocating. Like I've slowly become invisible. The host murmured, Go on. There's someone else. I never meant for it to happen. He started as just a friend at work, but then it turned into something else. I don't even remember the next minute or two. My ears were ringing. My thoughts were spinning. I was just staring at the road like my brain was buffering. The voice kept going. Calm. Conflicted. And painfully familiar. We haven't done anything serious, she added. But we've talked. A lot. About things I haven't talked about with my husband in years. That's when I pulled over. I didn't care where I was. Strip mall, edge of town. I parked. Sat there, staring out the windshield. Rain smeared the world into a blur. Was it her? I grabbed my phone, hit rewind on the episode, and listened again. Slower this time. Every word like a punch to the chest. I feel guilty, she said, but part of me doesn't. That's the worst part. I've tried to bring it up with him, the distance, the silence, but he always brushes it off. Like everything's fine. No, that couldn't be her. My wife would never. But the truth? My gut already knew. The way she phrased things. The way she paused. The things she said about our marriage, because let's face it, it was our marriage, weren't things you just guess. She talked about how they hadn't traveled much since their honeymoon. About the pressure to have kids. About feeling like roommates. That was us. That was exactly us. My heart started pounding. I didn't even realize I was holding my breath until the host cut in. Well, Kate, it sounds like you've been carrying this for a long time. Yeah, she said, voice cracking a little. I guess I just needed to say it out loud. Then the line cut. Just like that. She was gone. And I sat there, in my car in the rain, in a silence I couldn't crawl out of. I didn't drive home right away. I just sat there, staring at the pause icon on my phone, wondering what the hell I was supposed to do next. Because if that really was her, then everything I thought I knew about my life had just changed. I didn't sleep that night. Just laid there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, replaying every second of that call in my head. Over and over. I didn't even ask myself if it was her anymore. I knew. Call it instinct. Call it gut. But when you've heard the same voice whisper, I love you for nearly a decade, you know when it's speaking the truth. The next morning I got up early, made coffee I didn't drink, took a shower I didn't need, and sat down at the kitchen table, staring at the steam coming off the mug like it had answers. Then I did something I never thought I'd do. I started going through my wife's phone. No snooping app. No high-tech spyware. Just waited until she stepped out to grab groceries, then unlocked it with a code I'd seen her enter 100 times. I'd never used it before. I wish I hadn't. There were no obvious texts. Nothing scandalous. But I found a folder in her notes app, titled, Stuff I Don't Say. I opened it. It wasn't a diary. More like thoughts. Fragments. Sentences that didn't always finish. But I could feel the weight behind them. I want to be honest, but I don't want to ruin his heart. I didn't plan this. I just got tired of waiting for him to notice I wasn't okay. With Ben, I can breathe. With Paul, I just try to be good. Ben. There it was. A name. A crack in the wall. She'd never mentioned anyone named Ben. Not once. That's when it got real. Up until then, I still held on to this shred of hope. Maybe I was overthinking. Maybe the voice in the podcast just sounded like her. Maybe we were just going through a rough patch. But this was a whisper behind the curtain. A peek at the part of her I wasn't allowed to see. I put the phone down carefully, like it might explode. I should have confronted her. Right then. But I didn't. You know what I did instead? I went back to the podcast. I played that episode again. For the third time. Listen closer. And something hit me that I hadn't noticed before. The host asked her, Does your husband know how you feel? And she said, No. He's a good man. I don't want to hurt him. But I don't feel like he sees me anymore. Like he's living with a version of me that hasn't existed in years. That line hit harder than anything else. Because I knew exactly what she meant. I'd been so caught up in my job, in fixing things, in being stable and dependable. I forgot how to actually see her. Still, that didn't mean she had to go to someone else. To Ben. That night, she came home like nothing had happened. Kissed me on the cheek. Told me she bought almond milk because she knew I was trying to cut back on dairy. She smiled at me. That warm, familiar smile. And I looked right into her eyes. And wondered who the hell she really was. The next few days, I played it cool. Too cool, probably. You ever try to act normal when everything inside you is screaming? Yeah. That was me. We still talked about what to have for dinner. Still watched dumb shows together on the couch. Still went through the motions like some married couple off a greeting card. But in my head, I was somewhere else entirely. I became obsessed with that name. Ben. I didn't ask her about him. Not directly. I didn't want to tip her off. Instead, I started watching. Who she texted. Who she smiled at when her phone buzzed. When she left the room to answer a call, how long she stayed gone. And always, with that same casual face, like I wasn't tracking her every blink. One night, she had a work dinner. Said she'd be out late, some quarterly thing with her department. Normally, I wouldn't even blink. But that night, I waited 10 minutes after she left, then grabbed my keys and followed. Not proud of it. Not saying it was sane. But I had to know. I parked across from the restaurant, engine off, lights down. Watched her walk in. She looked good. Hair done. Heels. That navy dress I hadn't seen in months. She wasn't dressed for a budget review. She was dressed for someone. I waited. 20 minutes. 30. An hour. Then I saw him. Tall guy. Glasses. Clean shave. Looked like he jogs in the morning and drinks smoothies that cost more than my lunch. She laughed when he said something. Touched his arm as they sat down. And in that moment, I knew. This was Ben. He didn't need a name tag. Didn't need her to whisper it. You just know. I sat there in the car, heart pounding like I'd run a marathon. And I had this insane urge to storm in. To blow it all up. But I didn't. Because something in me said, wait. Watch. Let it unfold. And it did. Dinner. Wine. More laughs than I'd seen from her in months. Then, they stood outside, by her car. Close. Way too close. No kiss. But the look they gave each other before parting, that said more than any kiss could. It said, we've already crossed the line, and we're going to cross it again. She came home 2 hours later. Kicked off her heels, dropped her purse, kissed me on the forehead like everything was fine. And I played my part. I smiled. Said I was glad she had a good time. But inside, something had shifted. This wasn't just about a voice on a podcast anymore. This was real. Right here. In my house. In my life. And I had a choice to make. I don't know what snapped in me exactly. Maybe it was the way she kissed me on the forehead like I was a kid. Maybe it was the way she went straight to the bedroom, humming some song like she wasn't slowly dismantling our marriage. But that night, I stopped playing along. No drama. No confrontation. Just strategy. First thing I did was buy a burner phone. Cheap one from a gas station down the road. Paid in cash. No questions asked. Why? Because I needed a space where I could keep my notes. Recordings. Photos. Thoughts. Stuff that didn't belong on the shared family cloud. It felt dirty, sure. But I figured, if she could have secrets, so could I. Next, I made a list. Ben. Work events. Her phone habits. Gaps in her stories. I started looking at our life like an outsider. Not as a husband, but as an investigator. For example, she always said she had these late meetings. But when I checked her calendar on the shared laptop those days, nothing scheduled. Blank. And then there was her car. She kept it spotless. Always. But one morning, after she left for yoga, I went down and took a look. Passenger seat pushed back. A tiny coffee receipt stuffed under the mat. Not her usual coffee place. Not even in our part of town. The date? Same night as her department dinner. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Instead, I started keeping track. I'd watch her say goodnight, then wait 20 minutes. Open the tracker app one installed on her phone. Yeah, I went that far. And follow the little blinking dot as it landed at some apartment complex 10 miles from here. She was careful, I'll give her that. Never stayed long. Always made sure she came back smelling like home. But it didn't matter. The lies were real. The betrayal was real. The part that stung the most? It wasn't even the fact that she was seeing someone else. It was that she could still come home and look me in the eyes. Still ask if I wanted tea. Still pretend like nothing had changed. Like I didn't matter. And maybe to her. I didn't. But I mattered to me. And if this was going to fall apart, I'd make damn sure I walked out of it with my dignity intact. I started rehearsing what I was going to say. In the car. In the shower. At work, between emails. I'd run through whole imaginary conversations in my head. Her denying everything. Me staying calm. Her turning it around. Me not taking the bait. But every time I got close to actually doing it, I'd freeze. Maybe I wasn't ready. Maybe part of me still hoped she'd come clean on her own. That she'd sit down one night, tears in her eyes, and tell me the truth without me having to drag it out of her. She didn't. Life just kept rolling like nothing was wrong. We went to a friend's birthday party. She laughed. I smiled. We danced once even. To everyone else, we were the same couple they'd known for years. Solid. Fine. Normal. And I hated that. Not because I wanted attention, but because I was tired of pretending. Tired of playing the understudy in a story she'd already rewritten behind my back. One night, we sat on the couch watching a show we'd started weeks ago. Some thriller, full of twists and hidden motives. Halfway through the episode, she said, "You know, you've been really quiet lately." I glanced at her. "I've had a lot on my mind." She paused the show. "Like what?" And right then, I almost said it. I almost told her I knew. About the podcast. About Ben. About the lies. But instead, I looked her in the eye and said, "Do you ever feel like we're just roommates now?" She blinked. That caught her off guard. "What do you mean?" she asked, carefully. "I mean, we don't really talk. We don't really touch. You're always busy. And when we are in the same room, it feels like we're just going through the motions." She exhaled, looked down at her hands. "I felt that too," she said. "That's it. No follow-up. No explanation. Just a soft little admission. And maybe if I didn't already know everything, that moment would have felt meaningful. Like we were opening a door. But to me, it sounded hollow. A safe answer. The kind of thing you say when you're keeping one foot out the door. We finished the episode in silence. She didn't bring it up again. And I didn't push. But inside me, the timer had started. I wasn't going to live like this much longer. A few days later, I made a decision. I wasn't going to blow up. I wasn't going to scream, or throw things, or demand some big tearful confession. I was going to end this quietly. Clean. Sharp. Without giving her a single inch of power. So I started planning. First, I opened a new bank account. Just in my name. I redirected my paycheck. Transferred half of what was in our joint savings. Exactly half. I even left a spreadsheet with the math in case she ever accused me of being unfair. Then I rented a small studio apartment on the other side of town. Month to month. Nothing fancy. But it had a lock that only I had the key to, and right now, that felt like gold. I moved in piece by piece. A couple boxes after work. One suitcase on a lunch break. Quiet, invisible trips. She never noticed. Funny, right? You'd think your husband slowly disappearing from the house would raise a flag. But no. She was always working late. Or grabbing drinks with friends. Or, my personal favorite, taking some much-needed alone time. Alone time? Yeah. Sure. Each night I spent in the new place, I felt a little lighter. A little clearer. There were moments, I'll admit, when I missed her. Not her now, but the version of her I thought I had. The woman I built a life with. The woman who used to reach for my hand in the middle of the night just to feel I was there. But that version of her didn't exist anymore. And maybe never did. One evening, as I was packing the last few things I wanted to take, laptop, a few books, an old photo of my mom, I found our wedding album on the bottom shelf of the hallway closet. I sat on the floor and flipped through it slowly. The smiles felt so distant. Like I was looking at strangers who once borrowed our faces. On the last page, there was a note she had written me the night before our wedding. Handwritten. In blue ink. "No matter what changes, you'll always be the one I want to come home to." I stared at that line for a long time. Longer than I should have. Then I closed the album. Put it back on the shelf. And walked out without it. I picked a day. Not randomly, intentionally. It was a Thursday. She had one of her strategy dinners scheduled, and I knew she wouldn't be home until late, which gave me time to finish what I needed to do. I left early from work. Went home. Cleaned out the last of my things, toiletries, chargers, that hoodie she always borrowed. I didn't leave anything I might want later. Except the wedding ring. I took it off, placed it on the kitchen table. Right on top of a plain white envelope. Inside, a simple letter. No drama. Just, "I know everything. I wish it didn't end this way. Don't try to call me." That was it. No guilt trip. No timeline of betrayals. No chance for her to flip it into a conversation. Just a closed door. Then I went to the closet, Found the podcast mic I'd bought a year ago, the one she said we'd use together for fun little recordings. I held it for a second, smirked, fitting my thought, because it started with a podcast. And in a way, this was my response. I recorded a voice memo, just for me, just to hear myself say it out loud. You are not crazy. You didn't imagine it. You weren't blind, just trusting. She made a choice. And now so do you. I hit save. Titled it Clarity. Then I left. No slamming doors. No keys thrown in the bushes. Just a quiet exit. That night, back at my new place, I waited. I left my old phone powered on. Just once. At 9:43 p.m., she texted. Where are you? Then. Paul? Then. This isn't funny. Call me. Then. What's going on? And finally. Please. I didn't sleep much that night. Not because I was upset, but because silence takes getting used to. No drawers slamming. No hairdryer at 6:30 in the morning. No casual background noise of someone else's life filling the space. Just the hum of the fridge. And my own thoughts, finally with room to breathe. Around midnight, I checked the old phone again. Not to reply, just to see how far she'd go. There were 5 missed calls. A string of increasingly desperate texts. Please tell me this is a joke. What do you think you know? You're not even giving me a chance to explain? And my favorite. Are you seriously ghosting your own wife? I almost laughed. Because yeah, I guess I was. Only it wasn't ghosting. It was evacuation. A tactical retreat from a war I never signed up for. She wasn't sorry. She was just caught off guard. There's a difference. I closed the phone. Went back to the window. Sat there in the dark for a while, listening to the wind push against the glass. There was pain, yeah. But there was something else underneath it, starting to rise. A flicker of peace. Not joy. Not relief. Just stillness. And after what felt like months of noise, that alone was enough. By morning, I'd switched SIM cards. New number. New plan. Only a few people had it. Work, my brother, and my buddy Mike from college, who'd seen me through enough crap to earn permanent clearance. The old phone? I kept it on airplane mode. Strictly for observation. And sure enough, she kept texting. By day 3, the tone had changed. Less confused wife. More angry roommate who found the fridge empty. You don't just get to disappear. This is childish, Paul. If you want to talk like adults, I'm here. That one made me laugh out loud. Because for months I was there. Sitting across the table. In the same room. Trying to have conversations she refused to hear. Now that the silence wasn't on her terms, it suddenly felt unfair. By the weekend, she started calling around. Mike messaged me. Hey man. She called. Said it was urgent. I said I hadn't heard from you. You good? I replied with a thumbs up and a beer emoji. He didn't ask anything else. That's why I trust him. Then she hit up my brother, who told her, quote, If Paul wanted you to know where he is, you'd know. Have a nice weekend. He always did have a gift for diplomacy. That Sunday, I drove past the old house. Didn't stop, just wanted to see if she was there. If maybe Ben's car was in the driveway. It wasn't, but hers was. Curtains drawn. Porch light off. Quiet little lie of a home. The place didn't even feel like mine anymore. And strangely, that didn't hurt. I pulled away, stopped at a gas station, got a hot coffee and sat in the lot for a while, watching life go on. People laughed. Kids spilled drinks. Some guy was trying to clean his windshield with one of those broken squeegees that just smear the dirt around. And I realized something simple but kinda big. She was part of my old life. The new one hadn't started yet. But it would. Soon. Back at the studio, I opened my laptop. Typed a short message into a blank document. If she reaches out again, I won't respond. If she shows up, I won't answer. This is not revenge. It's self-respect. Let her sit with it. Then I saved the file and named it Rules. Because when you've been manipulated long enough, even your own boundaries feel like rebellion. And this time, I wasn't backing down. She showed up on a Monday. I was walking out of work. Gray sky, light drizzle, the kind of cold that gets in your sleeves, and there she was, leaning against my car. Arms crossed, eyes low. Honestly, my stomach clenched the second I saw her. Not fear. Not anger. Just this heavy, quiet ugh that hit somewhere deep. Like my body already knew this conversation was pointless. "Paul," she said, like trying my name would unlock something. I didn't answer. Just walked past her, opened the trunk tossed in my backpack. "You're really not going to say anything?" "I'm not ignoring you," I said. "I just don't owe you a response." She blinked. Didn't expect that one. "Look, I don't know what you think you know." "Don't," I cut in. "Don't start with that. You know exactly what I know." Silence. "So what, you went through my phone? You recorded our life into a podcast." "That wasn't. You called yourself Kate," I said. "But it was you. Your voice. Your story. Your version of things. The lonely wife with the absent husband." She looked like she was about to speak. I kept going. "You made it sound like I was some stranger who never checked in. But I did. You know I did. You just liked the version where you got to be the victim. I didn't mean for it to get that far," she said, voice cracking. "I didn't even do anything with Ben." I laughed. Cold. Honest. "I don't care. You crossed the line the second you started lying. Hiding. Dressing up secrets as self-discovery." She sat down on the curb, right there in the parking lot. Hair damp. Jeans dark from the rain. She looked small. Tired. And for a second, just a second, I almost felt bad. "I was lonely, Paul," she said. "I didn't know how to reach you. You were always so calm. So unreachable. I felt invisible." "No," I said. "You felt bored. And instead of talking to me, you turned your life into content." We sat there, not saying anything for a minute. Then she asked quietly, "So what now?" I leaned against the car, hands in my jacket pockets. "Now? Now I go live my life. And you figure out what to do with yours." She nodded slow, like she knew it was coming but hoped saying it out loud might change something. "Are you ever going to forgive me?" I opened the door. "That's not really on my list this year." I got in. Shut the door. In the rearview mirror, she didn't move. Still sitting there. Rain falling lightly around her. And for the first time since this whole thing started, she wasn't the center of my story anymore. I didn't feel triumph. Didn't feel satisfaction. But I felt done. And that was enough. It's been 6 months. Not that I'm counting. But I do remember the date I left like people remember a fire. Not because they want to, but because something inside them never forgets the heat. I've moved twice since then. Nothing dramatic. Just a slow peeling away of the old version of me. The guy who used to come home and wonder what mood he was going to find. The guy who thought keeping quiet was the same as keeping peace. Turns out, they're not the same thing at all. I'm not gonna lie, the first month sucked. There were days I woke up and reached for her side of the bed before remembering she wasn't there. I'd pass a wine aisle in the grocery store and still check for her favorite bottle out of habit. I'd hear something funny and think she'd laugh at that, and then feel stupid for even thinking it. But grief is weird like that. Even when someone hurts you, your body still misses what used to be. Even if it was fake. She sent a few emails at first. Nothing dramatic. A lot of, "I just want to talk," and "I didn't know what I was doing." Eventually it turned into, "You should have fought for us." Right. Because apparently me showing up, staying loyal, and asking her what was wrong wasn't fighting hard enough, but her confessions to a podcast host were. Anyway, I didn't respond. Not out of spite. Just because there was nothing left to say. I'd said everything I needed to when I left the ring on the table. So where am I now? Still working the same job. Still eating too many frozen dinners. Still learning how to sleep without the white noise of another person breathing next to me. But I also go on walks now. I read more. I laugh more. Real laughter, not the tight-lipped kind you use to keep things from falling apart. I even started dating again. Nothing serious. No grand rebound story. Just simple conversations. Shared coffee. No secrets hiding under small talk. And maybe that's what healing actually is. Not forgetting. Not pretending it didn't hurt. Just learning to live with the scar, and not letting it define the whole body. Sometimes people ask me what happened. Mutual friends, co-workers, people who heard vague versions of the fallout. And I just tell them this. One day I heard a voice that I knew better than my own. Only it wasn't talking to me. It was telling a story to the world, a story I didn't recognize. And I realized I'd been written out of my own life. So I picked up the pen and wrote my way out. That's it. No vengeance. No bitterness. Just truth. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do isn't yelling or exposing someone. It's walking away without needing them to understand why. And if she ever listens to this, because who knows, maybe someday she will, I hope she knows. I did love her. I really, truly did. But I love myself more now. And I'm not sorry for that. Not even a little. I didn't expect to hear the voice again. But it happened. Same podcast. Different episode. 6 months later. It was a lazy Saturday. Raining again. Seems like rain follows this story around like a ghost. I was folding laundry, drinking bad coffee, background noise on low. And then the host said it. All right, next caller on Tell Me Your Truth. You're on. I recognized the breath before the first word. She didn't say her name this time. Didn't call herself Kate. But it was her. The real voice. No disguise. No soft-spoken fiction. Just her. She sounded tired. I'm calling back, because I feel like I owe it to someone. Maybe to myself. I lost someone good. Because I forgot how to speak before I started performing. He wasn't perfect. God knows, neither was I. But he was steady. Kind. Real. And I threw that away. For the idea of something more exciting. I've been sitting with that. And it hurts. So if he's listening, I'm sorry. Not for being unhappy, but for not being brave enough to tell you to your face. I stood there, towel in one hand, still half folded. The host said something comforting. She sniffled, laughed awkwardly. Then she hung up. That was it. No name. No begging. Just a quiet, tired voice, finally telling the truth out loud. And I didn't feel rage. Didn't feel smug. Didn't even feel the old sadness. I just whispered, "Too late," and kept folding. That night, I thought a lot about truth. How some people use it like a weapon. How others wear it like armor. And how for some, it's a confession that comes long after it matters. But me? I'm done waiting for confessions. I'm done building closure out of other people's timing. I've got my own stories to tell now. Maybe one day, I'll call that podcast myself. Not to answer her, but to say something like, I was the guy on the other side of someone's mistake. And I survived it. I didn't burn down the world. I didn't drown in anger. I just got quiet, and then I got free. But not today. Today I've got clean towels, good music, and a quiet I've finally made peace with. And for once, I don't need to be heard. I'm just glad I know my own voice again. I ran into her by accident. A bookstore of all places. The kind of quiet place neither of us used to go when we were together. We always said we would someday, but life kept us too busy. I was in the corner by the nonfiction table, flipping through a book about silence. Ironic, I know, when I heard her laugh. I knew that laugh. Even now. And for the first time since I left, I didn't feel my chest tighten. I just looked up, calm, steady. She was walking alone. No Ben. No friends. Just her, holding a paperback and looking like someone who hadn't slept well in a while. She saw me before I could decide what to do. Her eyes widened, then softened. Then she walked over. "Hey," she said. Small, careful. "Hey." We stood there for a second. The store around us full of quiet page turns and soft jazz. "I didn't know you came here," she said. "I don't," I replied. "Guess I do now." She gave a small, sad smile. "I've thought about calling." "I know. You changed your number." "I know," I said again. A pause. Then she spoke, carefully, like stepping barefoot across glass. "I didn't sleep with him." I just looked at her. "Ben. I mean, we met for coffee, dinners, a lot of long talks. And yes, it crossed my mind. But I didn't. I wanted something emotional, not physical. That doesn't make it better, but I needed you to know." I exhaled. "You know," I said, "I always wondered if that would make a difference. And I think it does." She nodded, biting her bottom lip like she was trying to hold something in. "I was lost," she whispered. "Not because of you. Because of me. I looked for someone to pull me out instead of just telling you I was drowning." We stood in silence for a moment. "I heard your voice," I finally said. "On the podcast. The second call. You were honest." She looked down, smiled faintly. "I hoped you would hear it. Not because I expected anything, just because I owed it." Another beat of quiet. And then, without planning it, without knowing why, I said, "Do you want to get coffee?" She looked up at me. Surprised. Cautious. But not hopeful, not yet. Just open. "Coffee?" she said. "Just coffee." I nodded. "No promises. No replays. Just two people who used to know each other really well, having a conversation." She blinked, then smiled, genuinely this time. "I'd like that." We didn't solve everything that day. Weren't suddenly healed, forgiven, or fixed. But it wasn't about that. Sometimes, closure isn't a door slamming shut. Sometimes, it's two people choosing to sit at the same table, even after everything, and simply say, "I still see you." And maybe, just maybe, that's a beginning. If you liked the story, tell me about it in the comments. I would be grateful for likes and subscriptions. Good luck, friend.